As project managers, it's our job to care for our projects, to keep them safe, and generally be good stewards of the resources they require. Hi everyone, I'm Kayla. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to share 5 ways every project manager should ensure the safety and well-being of their projects. With each point, I'll offer a few practical tips for how you can incorporate these best practices into your daily project management activities. And before we get into it, here's a quick message from this video's sponsor. Safety of your project data is crucial, especially when it comes to preventing data damage and loss. FluentPro software designed a straightforward cloud backup solution for project managers that guarantees all project data is automatically backed up and can be easily restored without the hassle of a complex setup. Tip number 1, set clear goals and objectives to prevent a crash and burn scenario. Nobody wants their project to crash and burn, and I've spoken at length about the importance of an adequate initiation phase. And so for you, whether this means a 6-month-long discovery phase or a 1-hour brainstorm session with a basic project charter, the bottom line is you need something which clearly outlines the goals and objectives of the project. This is important for alignment with your sponsor and team, and it also gives you something to fall back on when you're in the middle of execution and things start to change or get complicated, as they do. This way you'll have something to refer back to. So some ways you can make this happen. If you don't already have one, create a simple project charter. This should outline the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the project. I have a template you can use, and I'll share that in the video description. Get formal buy-in or sign-off from the start. Do not begin until you have that formal green light from your sponsor and stakeholders, preferably in the form of a signature, because there's something magical about signing a document, right? People tend to take things more seriously when they're required to read through it and actually sign their name to it. You'll also want to establish clear success criteria that ties back to the goals and objectives of the organization. This ensures your project is valuable and it's worth pursuing. Tip number 2, stay on top of your project progress so it doesn't go rogue. The best project managers know exactly where their projects are at any given time. And the only way to know that is if the project is being properly updated. So depending on the systems and type of projects you're working on, implementing tools like maybe dashboarding or using certain features within your project management system, those are all very important things you can do to stay on top of how things are progressing. And if you're not doing this, then your project could very easily take on a life of its own. Actually, in my experience, it's not uncommon for project managers to just set up a project plan and then sort of check out while execution is happening. As tempting as it may be, don't do this because that's when things can get really dicey. So if you're only checking on your project, maybe before status update meetings or just when you feel like it, don't be surprised when things get out of control. There's really no one to blame but you. So some ways you can work on this and make it happen. Dedicate time each day to just quick pulse check on your project and assess things like budget, timeline, etc. Set up dashboards or other reporting methods that make it easy to tell how things are going. Schedule regular status update meetings with your teams, whether that's in the form of maybe a stand-up or something else, with a cadence that makes sense for your use case. Tip number 3, keep data secure and backed up so it doesn't disappear. Consider all the time and effort that goes into setting up a project in your project management system. You're creating a timeline, you're adding notes, attaching files, updating tasks. What happens if all that information disappears? If you have ever had this happen, then you know it's absolutely maddening. And whether this was maybe the result of data loss or your team members just didn't store information properly, it could be a huge setback to project teams. As the project manager and the steward of that information, it's worth educating yourself on data backup solutions and ensuring that your staff is trained in data management best practices. So, some ways you can make this happen. You'll want to explore backup options for your project management system or discuss your needs with the IT support staff at your place of work. You can also create SOPs and train all your staff on best practices with data management. Tip number 4. Anticipate and prepare for risks to prevent a sinking ship. We have all heard the horror stories about project risks that came to fruition, like the ones where they totally destroyed a project or they caused major delays and upset. And I would venture to guess that some of this have experienced that firsthand too. And when we're talking about risks, it's important to remember that risks in general aren't something to be afraid of because they literally exist everywhere in life. But when we don't properly prepare for risks that have a higher probability, like not wearing a seatbelt when you're riding in a car, then maybe we aren't being the best stewards of our projects or our lives. So I encourage you to have conversations around risk, and this can happen as early as initiation when you're putting together your project charter. As time goes on, this could mean the development of a risk register or more involved risk management strategies. It really depends on your project, your team, and your organization. You'll also want to form strategies for how to deal with risks. Mitigation is certainly an option, but so is transferring risk. It all depends. And as the project manager, you need to take responsibility for these discussions and preparations. So, some ways you can make this happen. If you aren't already, start having conversations with your team about risk, either through brainstorm sessions or formal assessment processes. Make it a priority and best practice for all of your projects. Prepare risk registers or other documents that help you analyze and strategically prepare for risks. Remember that risk management isn't only about mitigation or avoidance, but it can also use strategies like transference and even acceptance. And finally, tip number 5, communicate clearly and often so the project doesn't take on a life of its own. You knew I wouldn't be able to wrap up this video without talking about communication. It is the backbone of great project management after all. But there's a lot more to it than literally sending an email or having an update conversation. At the very least, we need to decide who to communicate with about which items and how often to do so. And this is why developing a communication plan is so important. Without proper parameters, project communication can quickly get out of control. And it results in issues that we've all experienced, like redundant work, confusion about priorities, scope creep, missed deadlines. That's why regular meetings like stand-ups or status updates are so important, which leads me to my next point. One of the biggest myths of modern day work is that meetings are a useless waste of time, when the truth is the wrong meetings with the wrong people managed in the wrong way are a waste of time. Properly run meetings are an absolutely critical to ensure alignment and quick response to blockers, and they can even boost team morale through validation of a shared work experience. So, some ways you can make this happen. Create a communication plan at the start of the project, detailing who and how to communicate with over the course of the project. As part of the communication plan, you'll want to make sure to include regular status updates with your team, stakeholders, and sponsors. And don't stop meeting. Even if it feels like everything's moving smoothly, it's important to continue having regular touch points to confirm everyone is on the same page. And that wraps up our 5 tips for this video. Thanks for watching. And if this information was helpful, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. If your team is managing dozens or even hundreds of projects on one platform, then it's critical to ensure your data is safe. The loss of even one single project could result in missed deadlines, days of extra work, and personal stress and frustration. FluentPro Backup is a cloud-based solution that provides automated continuous backup and recovery for project management and database systems like Asana, Monday.com, Trello, Smartsheet, new Microsoft Planner, Dataverse, and more. And one of the things I love about the FluentPro Backup is how easy the software is to set up. No secret screen or complicated instructions to get things up and running. If you're curious about how FluentPro Backup can streamline your backup and recovery process, visit the website to learn more and get a free trial. You can find the link in the description of this video.